All right, folks, we'll be back with in-ring action. But now let's go to GPW Event Center with Sean Mooney.
Hello, everyone. It's Sean Mooney, and I am back in the Event Center for a big reason to tell you about a tremendous wrestling event you do not want to miss, coming to Gatineau, Quebec, Canada on Saturday, May 30th. Now, that day, you will meet some of the greatest superstars ever at Legends Mania as we take you back in time. Those legends include Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Jake the Snake Roberts, the Total Package Lex Luger, the Birdman Coco Beware, Jacqueline, the Headbangers, Greg the Hammer Valentine, Sarah Page, the China Syndrome, Jerry the King Lawler, Jacques and Raymond of the fabulous Rougeau brothers, Rhino, as well as the son of the British Bulldog Harry and his sister Georgia, along with none other than their mother, Diana Smith. And I will be there too. I wouldn't miss it. Then, that evening, a wrestling extravaganza including a Royal Rumble where Jacques Rougeau and Harry Smith will collide with 18 other wrestlers in the same ring. It is going to be an amazing event for the entire family. Gatineau, Quebec, Canada, May 30th. You do not want to miss it. So get your tickets now at JacquesRougeau.com or GPWLegendsMania.ca or on the Slush Puppy Center website. Don't miss your chance to be a part of this spectacular event. I'll see you there.
Tick, 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 tick. Boom. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the day you have been waiting for. Forget Fridays, forget Saturdays, forget Sundays. The weekend means nothing when you have got Meltdown Monday on the horizon. Welcome to each and every one of you. My name is Tom Finkill. I am sitting here in rainy, drizzly, horrible Manchester, while our guest today is literally sat in paradise. You'll see what I mean in just a few moments' time. But it's going to be the most sensational show. It is going to be a spectacle, so much so that it makes me want to cheer out, "I am the Tomcat!" Yes, that is what is welling up inside me, and more is to come. But before I get there, before I set you off on that lightning rod, I've got to introduce the finest man in any room. Ladies and gentlemen, my tag team partner, the three-time tag team champion of the world and Wrestling Life Hall of Famer 2026 is the creation of devastation. It's Brian Clark. Woo!
Thank you, Tomcat. You know, here on the Meltdown, we bring the best of the Wild West, all the way from Tucson, Arizona, and across the pond to the best in the UK. Straight from Manchester, ladies and gentlemen. He is a three-time UK Host of the Year. He's everyone's Tomcat and always does great intros. And I'm just so happy to be working with this legend. And I say legend, some people just throw that word around. But Tomcat is, in fact, a big paid legend. And it's my honor and privilege to work with him each and every week here on the Meltdown. What do you think, Tom? Are we ready to bring in this monster of a guest?
Absolute monster. Yes, it has been an epic week for us here in Manchester. I have been salivating at the prospect of this wonderful show with you guys today. It's going to be good. It is so good that my house has completely turned upside down. And you guys might be able to relate to this. But my wife had an idea on Thursday that she was going to buy my daughter a brand new bed. That was going to happen in the Easter vacation holidays, okay? It's now Wednesday, the following week. She's been knocking down walls. She's got paint in her hair. She has literally constructed a full new bedroom for her in the space of like 6 days. Does anybody else's partner do this? Leave us some messages down in the comments and let us know how they just take over completely, because it's been a whirlwind. And while that has been going on upstairs, I've been getting prepared in my studio for the most sensational guest. And this is a guest, Bryan, that is so awesome that we are both going to do the intro. So you're going to kick it off and we'll ping pong it between us. Let's go.
It sounds good. By the way, the latest Randy Savage has arrived. If you notice a little change into the bomb shelter. And
yeah.
And maybe, Tom, you can show me some new stuff once you get everything organized. Because I understand about that wife starting to get in that mode of painting and remodeling. I got it. I'm
Crazy,
there.
right?
I have been there. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, today's guest is someone who has managed to do the impossible in professional wrestling. He has made people cheer him. He has had people boo him and actively argue with their friends about him for decades.
He's a second-generation wrestler, a proud Quebecer, one half of one of the most underrated tag teams of the 1980s, a master of heat in multiple eras, and a superstar who makes sure he always gets his man.
From the Rougeau brothers to the Mountie to WCW's amazing French Canadians, he didn't just play characters, he understood people. He understood crowds and psychology at a level that few ever achieve. Whether you loved him or hated him or paid money, that's right, to see him get punched in the face, either way, this man always made you feel something the moment he stepped into that ring.
Today, we're talking legacy, Quebec crowds, tag team wrestling, cattle prods, WCW chaos, what's next, and what it really takes to last in this business.
He is a former WWF Intercontinental Champion, a WWF Tag Team Champion, and a Wrestling Life Hall of Famer. He is handsome, he is brave, and he is strong. Please welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Meltdown, the legendary Jacques Rougeau.
Woo!
Hey, wow, what an intro. I need to take you on the road with me when I go places.
That could be arranged, right? Especially if you bring that weather that's behind you, Jacques.
Yeah, it's beautiful here down in Florida now. I'm lucky now. In the last few years, I became a snowbird, so now I leave the snow up to my good friends up north in Quebec, and I go enjoy the palm trees and the sunshine.
Living life as it should be lived in the sunshine. Both you and Bryan currently blessed with sunny weather, and me literally playing that smallest violin that I'm sat in the world's rainiest city. So yeah, living life and loving it. But today's going to be epic. It's going to be fun. We are going to throw up some exhibits for the Mountie to take a little peek at as we go through the course of his incredible career and talk about what is just around the corner in beautiful Quebec on the 30th of May. That's to come as we progress through the show. But Bryan, kick it off for us, big man. Let's talk.
Absolutely. Let's talk about history. Let's talk about legacy. This man has done it all. So, Jacques, we're going to start out. I want to know, do you remember the moment that you realized, and your family's already in the business, but as a young man, was there a moment that you said, okay, I'm doing this? Was there a time that you said, this is it?
Well, you know, Bryan, first of all, Bryan, I want to say thank you so much for having me on the podcast. We were good friends in the dressing room, and it always was nice to have you in the dressing room, a low-keyed, intelligent person. It was always fun to be around you. Tom, same. Thanks for having me on the show. I do want to make a correction. Well, I'm a third generation of family, the Rougeau family. My great-great-uncle, Eddie Auger, was the first one who came in the business. And then his sister, Albina Auger, had two sons, which were Johnny and Jacques Rougeau, my father and my uncle. And then there was me, Raymond, and Arma. And then there was my three sons, who were the fourth generation of the Rougeau family. So I just wanted to clear that up because it's important to me, family and the generations and the decades that he put in the business. Now, to get back to your question, Bryan, I got to tell you, it's a question that's pretty easy for me to answer. You know, a lot of people have their own destiny. They want to do something, or they thrive of doing something in life. I was pushed into the wrestling business. I remember when I was 4 or 5 years old, at the latest of my knowledge, and my dad and my uncle were promoters at the time in Montreal, and they had the big shows on the Monday night, and the Monday night was at the Montreal Forum or the Paul Sauvé Arena, and my father being the booker, well, on Sunday nights, the night before, he'd have his opponent come to our house, our personal house, 20 miles out of Montreal. And so I was 4 years old, and during the day on the Sunday, I'd have Joe Leduc that would show up at my house, and I was so impressed with all the scars he had on his forehead. Oh, he scared me. And then next week it was Abdullah the Butcher, that would show up at my house. We'd have him for lunch, and I'd be by the pool, and then we'd have the Sheik, the Eddie Farhat, the old Sheik, and I'm thinking, I remember I was so much, and I was a special kid growing up, and I'll tell you more about that later. But I was special, and I always needed attention, and so for me to get attention was like to imitate these guys. So when they'd come around the house, I'd put a sheet on my head and I'd go, "Bab, sheep, bab, sheep," and it started imitating them, and as the talent came, as they came over and over, and as I really looked at them in the ring, I started to be good at imitating them. So at the age of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, following wrestling, even going into I remember my father would do some loops sometimes, like on a weekday, it was school, and he'd go to a town which was not too far, and I'd go and I'd hide in the car and like in the back seat, so my father wouldn't see me. So when he'd get in the car with Gino Brito or the guys going to the show or whoever, and then we'd about 20 miles were gone from the house, then I'd pop out from in the back seat and I'd say, "Hi, Dad," and because it was a school night, I wasn't allowed to go out, but I was always passionate by wrestling, but what happened is, by imitating these wrestlers and having so much fun doing it, I had so many people starting at the age of 8, 9 years old telling me, like, "Man, are you going to be a wrestler like your dad? Are you going to be a wrestler like your dad? And are you going to be a wrestler like your dad?" So eventually, I think that it's the people that made me become a wrestler, because they were giving me that attention that I was needed, that I wanted, and I was good at it. And I loved wrestling. I was born around it. So I think that's how I got into wrestling. So for me to say, is there one determined day that I decided, no, I think I was born into it. I lived it, and I became it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you were around it at such a young age. You were attracted to it, obviously. But once you got into the business, did you feel pressure to carry the Rougeau name?
My God, Brian, I wish I could tell you yes, but I wasn't, because, I was one of those guys. I was one of those guys that was a little conceited. I had a big head a little bit, and I thought I was the best of all of them, so I was never worried about having to do better with them. I knew in my own mind I was going to be the best. I was one of those guys that was going forward, and I was going like, I'm going to be the best. I had so much confidence in myself. I never lacked of confidence. So it wasn't a problem for me. The problem was, for me, was my daddy telling me, "Hey, calm down, son. You got a big head there. Relax a little bit. Slow down. Try to be humble a little bit more, And I remember my dad telling me one time, it's funny, because I was a young age when I started wrestling, and I was coming home from trips and telling my dad how great it went and how great it was this, how great I was, and how great. And my father told me, he says, "You better listen, son." He says, "You better be nice to everybody on the way up of this trip, this journey, because one day you're going to start going back down, and you're going to meet the same people again that you crossed on the way up. So you better be nice to them on the way up, because if you're not nice to them, when you start falling, going down, they're just going to step aside and let you fall. But if you were nice to them, they're going to stop your fall, and they're going to help you." And and I always remembered that. It's too bad I understood that too late, but I finally understood it.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with being humble. That's something that I've always adhered to, and I just think it's a great trait in everyone. I really do. So.
Definitely. And what a positive story that is about the mountain, about passing people on the way up, the same as the way down. That's exactly what we like to promote here on the Meltdown. Positivity and good mental well-being. And that is a good positive message to go forward with. So, from a proud Montreal wrestling family to the bright lights of the World Wrestling Federation, when you made the move from Montreal to the WWF, what was the biggest adjustment for you?
I thought you were going to say when you made your move to Montreal to Memphis. But that's later. But yeah, there was a big difference. There was a huge difference there. It was going from the minor leagues to the major leagues. It was the exposure was so big. Listen, I remember my first trip I did in Australia. The first trip I did in Australia, we traveled 37 hours. We went from Montreal to Toronto, Vancouver, Hawaii, Auckland, New Zealand, Auckland to Melbourne. And then we got up 4 hours later. We're in the ring with the sheep herders, like which became the bushwhackers, Luke and Rex. It was Rex and Luke, and it was like I remember getting at the airport. It was something. It was so amazing because I remember at the baggage claim when it was the first time I'd ever seen that. There was a guy with a sign there, and he had a sign say Rougeau Brothers, on the sign. And I remember looking at my brother Raymond and saying, "Ray, look at that! You believe that, man? Like, you believe like Michael Jackson's in town? Like, this is so awesome!" And it was big time. And then we got in the limousine, and then the limousine brought us around, and then we went to that big venue in Melbourne that Hulk Hogan was the main event that night, and it was like they were all Hulkamaniacs everywhere, and the signs, and it was so big, so huge. And then the next day we were in all the towns we did. I'm trying to think of the towns we did in Australia, all the big towns.
Brisbane, Melbourne,
Brisbane, Perth. Yeah, we did all those towns,
Yeah.
and from town to town, night after night, there was 20,000 people just waiting for Hulk and waiting for the WWF. It was absolutely amazing. It was a dream world. It was but it was great. When we started, we had hopes. We had high hopes, and we had left the province of Quebec and a little bit of east of Ontario, and we became worldwide sensations. So that was amazing.
You did. That is an absolute true statement that you became superstars. You really did, and it must be so wonderful for you to be able to share that moment with your brother. So tell us some of your favorite memories about teaming with Raymond.
Oh my God. We had so many, to be honest with you, because from the times before WWF going into the times where the match with the Bulldogs at Madison Square Garden is 20-minute Broadway, no winner. I remember sitting there and that's the first thing comes to my mind these days is the Bulldogs. But anyway, I'm sitting in the dressing room with Raymond, and Vince gets us together, and he says, we're in Madison Square Garden, the most prestigious place in the world for anything, for basketball, for hockey, for superstars, for music. So we're sitting in the dressing room, and he says to us, guys, oh, I want to have a 20-minute Broadway with you guys. And I remember when he said that, the Bulldogs being such an idol of ours. They were such a phenomena when we got there. The Bulldogs were so much better than anybody else that we'd ever seen. And for us to share the ring with them, it was amazing. So it was so when he says we're going to go 20-minute Broadway, I was shaking in my pants looking at Raymond like, yes. And I'm sure the Bulldogs were probably saying, what the hell? Like these jabronis from Montreal here. How come we're not beating them? But it was such an amazing time. And then all these feuds we had. Listen, we had some feuds with the Hart Foundation that were memorable. Bret the Hitman Hart and Jim the Anvil Neidhart. We were married 4 years to these guys because the first 2 years we were baby faces. We were good guys, and they were heels with Jimmy Hart. And then 2 years later, we stole Jimmy from them, and we moved to Memphis and became All-American Boys.
Yeah.
And we were heels, and they became babyface. So we had another tour with them, 2 years around the world with the Harts, and in between that, we had we were lucky to be able to work with some guys like the Rockers. I'm thinking of Marty Jannetty and Shawn Michaels. We had some classic matches. Those guys are Marty Jannetty is so underrated in this wrestling business. You were going to say something, Tom?
No, we love Marty Jannetty, just echoing those sentiments. We're going to see him next weekend, actually, for the Love of Wrestling here in Manchester. So, yes, just feeling that love for Marty, yeah.
Good. I love him. And there's so many other teams that are an underrated team that we had great matches where people, when they saw us get in the ring, they thought, oh, this is going to be a boring match. And at the end of the match, they were on their feet. The match was good guy against good guy matches, the worst matches in those days. People didn't want to see four good guys go together. They wanted to have a heel and a baby face.
Yeah.
But when we'd get in the ring with the Killer Bees, we'd start a match really nice and simple. And then we'd start building it to finally someone would cheat, which would be us. We'd cheat a little bit, and then they'd get a little madder, and then we'd cheat more. And then finally at the end, we'd turn the crowd. And it was amazing, the matches we had with those teams. And then there was the Islanders, then there was Demolition. There was so many teams that were fun. I'm thinking of Adam Baum. Adam, you were tag team up too. We wrestled you a couple of times in tag team. But I'll have to say that it was a marvelous time, Raymond and I can't tell you the great memories I had with Raymond in and out of the ring. But you know, it's so funny because I got to tell you something. I'm going to take this time here. I shouldn't take this time. You could always edit it out. But when we first got to Australia, that first day when we got to Melbourne, after that 37, the driver, I want to tell you this story because this is amazing. The guy, now we don't have like social medias then. It's not like today. It's like in 1986, and it's different. Not everybody knows what's going on from town to town. You could repeat the same matches, repeat the same things. And so there's this guy that picks us up, the driver that had the sign in our hands, the Rougeau brothers. We get in the limousine with him, and then he starts telling us about our Raymond and my career, but in Montreal.
Wow.
So it's like he's going over the big feuds I had with the Garvins, with, Michel Dubois, with Pat Patterson, Abdullah, and these guys. And I'm looking, and the guy's telling us how much he's a fan, and I could see how much he's a diehard fan. And so finally, he really impressed us so much that when we got to the building that night, he parked by the building, and then we got out to go in the building, and he sat in the car, in the limousine. And I told the guy, I said, well, what are you doing? It's like 6 o'clock at night, the show star. Oh, he says, I'm staying in the car. I got to stay with the car. I looked at him. I said, what? No way. So I went and I talked inside to the agent, and I got him a front row seat, and I got him passed by the dressing room to meet Hulk Hogan.
Wow.
And the guy's about 45 years old, and I had Hulk shake his hand because that was his dream that he told us on the way in the car. So long story short, we're going back after the venue. We're going back to the hotel. And then he tells me, he says, guys, this was the greatest day of my life. I can never repay you. I never can. And I said, I want to thank you so much. It's the best day of my life. But he said, listen, he says, tomorrow morning, I want to repay it to you. I want to do something special to you. He says, I'm scheduled to pick you up at 11 o'clock here at the hotel to bring you to the airport. He says, what I want to do is I'm going to pick you up at 9:30. And he says, I'm going to take you to the nicest beach in the world here in Australia. And I said to myself, wow. I said, it's amazing. I look at Raymond. I said, should we do it? Like, it's our first day on the road like this. It's big time. So Raymond said, sure, let's do it. So at 9 o'clock the next morning, we're in the lobby. 9:30, we're at the beach. And then when he drops us off at the beach, he waves at us in the car and he says, I'll be back in an hour. And then I looked at Raymond for that split second and I said, he'll be back in an hour. What if he doesn't come back? And we're in Australia here, what the hell? And we're out of our circuit here. We're not where we're supposed to be. So long story short, as soon as he leaves, he waves his hand and all that, and I turn around, and me and Raymond, we look, and it's a nude beach.
No.
And he dropped us off on a nude beach. And it's so funny because, hey, listen, I've seen some things that I swear to God I can't talk about right now. And to see 20 naked men playing volleyball on the beach is not very appealing, So anyway, long story short is an hour later he went and picked us up and he brought us back to the hotel. But I'll never forget the journey when we started in the WWF. It started with that nude beach, and I have so much fun because I do stand-up Comic-Cons too. I mean stand-up shows in Quebec. And when I go into details, you would laugh. You see the expression on the people's face and everything. But that's a memory that I'll never forget. I never would have lived if I wouldn't have been in the WWF.
I'm beaming from ear to ear. I know I can see Bryan there in Arizona.
Oh yeah, that's the thing about it. You never know what's going to happen on the road. And there you were doing something nice for someone because they were such a fan, and of course they returned the favor, but you had no idea it was that. That's a great story. Twists and turns. I love it. We're going to circle around here because, we talked about your amazing tag team career with your brother and all the feuds and everything that you guys did together. But something happened. You reinvented yourself in a way that nobody saw coming. So I want to ask you about the Mountie. Tell me about the character and what were your initial thoughts on it? What did you think about it, and were you excited about it?
Yeah, well, I took a year off after Raymond
Right.
wanted to retire in '89. We'd been there for 4 years, and so I went back home doing a few independent shows with Carlos Colon and working against Abdullah in Puerto Rico and a couple of places in independent circuits. And finally, I got the call from Vince, and Vince told me, Jacques, he says, I want you back. And I says, well, that's great. I says, what's going on? He says, well, we have this character we would like for you to play. And he says, we'd like for you to be a Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And I looked at him and I says, I don't know nothing about police, to be honest with you. Don't worry, Jacques. He says, you'll be good at it. He says, take a few days, think about it. And he says, come back to me. So I took a few days, thought about it. My brother-in-law was a Royal Canadian Mounted Police. So I started talking to him. I said, and stuff like that. And he says, oh, man, that'd be great. He was happy. He was like a big mark. Like he was saying, well, that would be great, And so I called Vince back. I said, okay. I said, two conditions. I said, I'll come back. I said, my first condition is I want Jimmy Hart as my manager. Jimmy Hart had done such a great job, such a professional. The best manager of all times was with us. And I'll go into that in a second to tell you why he is and why he was. But and I said that was my first condition. The second condition is I wanted to bring this electric shock stick, because when I was younger, in my younger days, when I was 7, 8 years old at the Montreal Forum, Eddie the Brain Creechman was a manager, and he used to manage Abdullah the Butcher, and he had this cattle prod. And he used to scare the living death out of me in the dressing room. And there'd be a little bzz at the end of the stick, and he'd be chasing me in the dressing room just for fun, to have some giggles. And I was so afraid and so scared that I said to myself, if I was that afraid, people is going to be that afraid too. So Vince said, okay. He says, bring the stick. So then I became the Mountie, and what an adventure from the vignettes, Brian. The first vignettes that I did, I'll never forget as long as I live. That again I use on my shows. It's so funny, and my humor shows. It's the first vignette. I'm sitting on a horse in a park in Quebec, and I have this American that with his girlfriend that drives by me in the park, and he's lost. He wants to go back to the States, and he stops by to me and he puts his window down, and I'm on my horse in the middle of the park, and he says to me, "Excuse me, officer. Excuse me, officer." And I look down to him with an arrogant face. I said, "I'm not an officer. I'm the Mountie." So I really got into the character really fast. And then the guy looked at me, and then he looked at his girlfriend like, holy shit, I got a wacko here. Then he looked back at me and he says, "Excuse me, Mr. Mountie." He says, "We're lost. We're trying to get back to the U.S. Can you help us get back?" And arrogantly, I look at him like this, and I get off my horse slowly, and I go in front of the window of his car, and I say, "Come here." And he doesn't even want to get out. So his girlfriend says, "Come on, get out." So finally he gets out, and he follows me, and I bring him to the front of my horse. And then I take the mouth of the front of my horse like this, and I put it up like this, and I look at him. I said, "You see that part of my horse? It always points to Canada. Come here." And then I brought him at the back of my horse. And then I lifted the tail up of the horse, and you could see the donut. And the camera was right in the donut. And then I said, "You see this part of my horse? It always points to the United States." And so the guy looked at me, and he started shaking, and he jumped in the car, he spinned his wheels, and he got out of there. That was my first vignette that showed for about 5 weeks around the world. And I could tell you something. When I got to Philadelphia, Boston, Long Island, Nassau Coliseum, Americans don't have a sense of humor in that kind of stuff. I'll tell you, man. I was being thrown rocks. But when you go in the buildings in the early afternoon, they get there at 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and people were on the railings on top waiting for you. I was being thrown some stones and rocks. And for I'd say the first 3 weeks, I had to have escorts from the real cops to get me out of the building, because I was afraid. That was amazing.
So that was mostly in the U.S., but did you ever have any heat or any issues with the Canadian police? Or did they say,
before we get to Canada, I got to tell you, over Europe, overseas, that was amazing, man. I swear the Mountie was so over. I had some matches for the title against Macho Man, and I had some great spots, and against Davey Boy, who was the local hero, and I had so many good spots because I remember going to Royal Albert Hall and going to Wembley and all those places, but I remember mostly going in front of the place where all the guards are, where they can't move and they're not allowed to do a face or to even wink their eye They're like mascots, but they're real people. And I used to go with Jimmy Hart and had so much fun. I'd go as the Mountie and I'd go and tease them, like and but they did vignettes with that, like but it was amazing. And then of course after being seen around the world as the Mountie, giving that really bad image of a Royal Canadian Mounted Police, you had to expect that the really Royal Canadian Mounted Police are not going to be happy about it. And but it was good because it took them a year and a half before they start acknowledging the getting the lawsuits to Vince and getting the injunctions. And the last 6 months that I was the Mountie, I wasn't allowed to wrestle on Canada TV anymore. They banned me from Canadian TV. Yeah. So that hurt my character a lot because the TV tapings, you remember, Brian, we were doing in the States, and they were showing that rail all around the world. But since I couldn't wrestle in Canada, I couldn't be on the reels anymore. So that they killed my gimmick. But it's they take themselves too seriously. But anyway, because how many times you see a movie where there's a bad cop or a dirty cop, that doesn't mean that all the cops are dirty. It's like it's a character, right?
Yeah.
But it just showed that the character was over, because if I managed to disturb a country, it was good. it was good.
It was definitely over, no doubt.
Remember the Big Boss Man match? I had the jailhouse match with Big Boss Man.
I watched some of that last night.
Oh my Lord. Literally, that was the next section that we were coming to. But as we're there right now, let's go full-fledged, because I revisited that today, and it just reestablished my faith in how great professional wrestling can be, because the vignettes that came after the match were just interweaved throughout the course of that pay-per-view. And some of the I literally wrote down some of the lines that I just had to replay. It was like, you can't do this to me, you stupid. Do you know who I am? And the best line I got, do you know who I am? I'm the Mountie.
I'm an international law enforcement officer. You want the finger? I'll give you the finger. Remember that one?
That was in 91. No one was giving the finger in 91.
Remember when they want to take my prints? So they said, give me your finger.
Yeah, you were fighting it big time.
You can't have the finger.
Hey, listen, I'm going to tell you something, guys. I'm telling you, I do Comic Cons now. I do a lot of them. And I'm going to do about 10 of them this year. And I swear to God, there's not one Comic Con, not one, that people come up and tell me, somebody during the night that says, you want the finger? Here's the finger. Or somebody's going to come up to me and, I'm the Mountie, I'm handsome, I'm brave, I'm strong. And then they start singing my song that Jimmy Hart did for us, So this is that character was definitely an amazing character. But before we finish off, I want to give the credit to Jimmy Hart, because I wanted to tell you about Jimmy Hart. It's important for me to tell you about Jimmy Hart, because there's been a lot of great managers in the WWF, but why I honestly say, and I'm not paying favorism with Jimmy Hart because he was my manager for 4 years, but I'm going to give you the reasons why I think he's the best manager that ever existed. First of all, I'll give you had a meeting with him at a radio station, TV station at 12. He was there at 11:30. He never drank. He never smoked. He never did drugs. He always bought suits that fit his character. Like, at his own money, he would go have some suits made that would match the costume of his characters. He would get on a microphone. Contrary to a lot of every manager, let me tell you something. I'm the brain here, and I'm going to do. And Jimmy Hart never spoke about himself. Never once in 4 years he said I or me. He always said, let me tell you something about my men. Let me tell you something about my men. It was always, he always put us in front of him all the time. It was like he was the best professional manager I've ever had. And that was one of my requests when I came back as a Mountie. I said, I want to have Jimmy Hart as my manager.
We can't say enough about him, can we, Brian? Yeah. We can't say enough about Jimmy.
What a sweetheart of a guy, in the ring, out of the ring. I love being around him. He's always been a complete professional ever since the day I met him.
Let's raise a glass to the legend that is Jimmy Hart. He is brilliant. Yes, well done, Jimmy. Now, seeing as we're talking about characters, we are into the Mountie. And as I've just seen Brian rub his hands together, it's the time that all our Meltdown maniacs have been waiting for. It is time to play our little game show with the legend that is Jacques Rougeau. So the hands are rubbed together. We're going to play a little game of winner stays on. I'm going to present you with two names. You're going to give your preference as to who goes over, who was your favorite, and who we drop, and who we replace them with.
Okay, hold on. Before we go into this game, I got to share something with you guys. You're going to be very disappointed in me, but I got to share this with you.
Go.
I had a falling out with Vince 35 years ago. I turned the TV off. I never watched one match of wrestling in 35 years. I never watched one show in the WWF. I don't know the talent. I only know the people in the 80s and the 90s. So I hope that your game is in the 80s.
You know for a fact it is, brother, because your topic, Mr. Rougeau, is pro wrestling gimmicks. So I'm going to present you with two gimmicks. You're going to give your preference. One drops and the next one comes into place. And we're going to find out who takes the big W at the end. So it's going to be fast. It's going to be fun. You don't have to give me an explanation. It's literally just a name and then we'll go through to the next. So we're ready to play. Let's flex it. Let's kick it off with Doink the Clown and the Red Rooster.
Doink the Clown.
Yes, brother. There we go. Doink the Clown or Akeem, the African Dream.
Akeem.
Keep it going. The one-man gang goes over. Akeem or the $1 Million Man.
$1 Million Man.
$1 Million Man or the Berserker.
$1 Million Man.
$1 Million Man or Brother Love.
Oof. $1 Million Man.
$1 Million Man or Brutus the Barber Beefcake.
$1 Million Man 1,000,000 times.
A million. Oh, this is interesting. $1 Million Man or the Big Boss Man.
Big Boss Man, of course.
Yes, of course it is. Jailhouse Rules. Big Boss Man or Kamala.
Oof. Both icons. Oh.
There can only be one. We've stumped him, Brian. I like it.
I'm
The
going to
clock
go
is
Big Boss.
ticking.
He's
Boss
going
man.
Big Boss Man. Big
Okay.
Boss Man. Big Boss Man or Sergeant Slaughter.
Big Boss Man.
Boss Man or Ryan Sheik.
Oh my God. Iron Sheik.
Iron Sheik or the
Cheeky
Repo
baby.
Man.
Iron Sheik.
Last one. Iron Sheik or the Mountie.
Iron Sheik.
Yeah! Love
Oh,
it.
it's
Yes,
close.
very good. Very good.
Excellent. Excellent.
That was awesome. Cheeky Baby goes over.
I can't believe it. I can't believe that jabroni who won.
I can't believe it.
That was brilliant. That was awesome. Oh, Brian, what did you think?
Oh, it was. I really thought I thought Boss Man was going to go right to the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was great. I love the rapid fire. Excellent.
That's what it's all about, right? Oh, well, I'm gonna throw this down to the line to you, and then we're gonna patch it to Brian. So from spending the night in jail to chasing championship gold.
So you defeated Bret Hart on a house show in January of 1992 to get the Intercontinental Champion. But why? I got the question for you: is why a house show? Was it to prove that anything can happen in the WWF on any night, or was there a different reason?
Brian, is this a shoot interview or?
No, this is just we're just.
Okay.
I'm curious as to why. Think about it. The fans think, hey, I didn't go to that show. I could have went to that house show on Wednesday. Okay.
Let me go into it right away because it
Let's
may
hear
take a few minutes. You know, Bret the Hitman Hart I started for his dad in '77 in Stampede Wrestling, and I love the family. I love them tremendously as a person. I love them in the Hart Foundation as his worker. I love them as Bret when I worked with him in the ring. He was just not an easy guy to do business with. He you know, and I had two philosophies in those days. When Raymond and I, it cost us a lot to Raymond and I, because when we came into business, Raymond and I, we were what do we call yes man. As soon as the agent would ask us something or Vince wanted something, it was yes sir, yes sir, yes sir. Mm-hmm. Bret learned something from somebody before, because he was always, nope, I'm not doing that. Nope, I'm not doing that. And nope. And So he knew. So at first I didn't like Brett for that. I really disliked him because I thought we were all equally talented. We all needed each other to get over. We were all, and then I understood that he was doing it on a marketing point of view. He was a businessman, so he looked out for himself. When I worked against Brett in Springfield, Massachusetts, in 1991, and took the title from him, it was the only reason why is because he didn't want to drop it to Piper. And because Piper was another babyface. So they used me for 4 days. I think I was champion for 3 days. That's all. I'm the shortest lived Intercontinental champion, but I still got dolls with all my Intercontinental title. It's so funny. But that's so funny. But I'll have to say that even when I got in the ring with Brett, he accepted to do it with Vince at the condition that he announced that he had 104 degrees fever that night, and that the doctor told him he should not wrestle. And he made that announced in the arena before he got in the ring. So I beat a sick guy. So so Brett wasn't very generous as far as that situation. So what was your question now? Because I know I got carried away with my emotions.
We didn't know that. That's an insight. That's a scoop here for us, for all the listeners of the Meltdown. We had no idea that he would do that speech prior to, and then finally dropped the strap. But I just think that's awesome that you did win the title, whether it was 3 minutes or 3 days. Like you said, that's merchandise for you down the line. Like,
there's a story. There's a story that goes with this, guys. I gotta tell you, because when they brought me in the room to tell me this, before they brought Brett in, Pat and Vince brought me in the room alone. He says, Jacques, he says, we got good news and bad news. Which one do you want first? So I said, give me the good news. He says, well, you're going to become Intercontinental champion. What? And I was just so happy. I was just so freaking happy. And he says, whoa, hold on, Jacques. Says, there's bad news that comes with it. He says, you're going to be dropping it in 3 days. but so when that happened, I'm a marketing kind of guy too, but on a legit kind of way. So what I did is I called the Montreal newspaper. And I have a friend that's about 60 years old. He's one of the good sportsmen in Quebec, the Montreal, biggest newspaper in Montreal. So I call him up about 11 o'clock at night, and I have the title with me. I wanted to make sure that it happened, that they didn't change. So I call him at 11, but he's in bed at 9 o'clock, that journalist. So I wake him up out of the bed at 11 o'clock at night. I had his personal number, and I said, Jean-Paul, I said, I got to tell you something. He says, who's this? I said, it's Jacques. I'm in Springfield, Massachusetts. He says, Jacques, it's 11 o'clock. Call me next week. I'm busy with the hockey. And no, I can't call you next week. It's going to be too late. I said, so anyway, I said, I'm going to send you a picture tonight. I said, I became the champion tonight, but I said, I'm going to lose it in 3 days. I said, you got to show it now if you want to show it. so it was great because I had a big picture in the Montreal paper that I was the Intercontinental champion. And what a move, huh?
Yeah. Hey, I would have done the same thing. You were the champion. It's in the books. That's all that matters.
What an awesome story, brother. I love that.
Love it.
What an awesome story. Bryan, carry on, because I was
sure. So after that, did you work with Hot Rod and you guys? How was your chemistry if you worked with him?
You know what? Hot Rod was it was an honor, a privilege to work with him. I loved him to death. And in the dressing room, he was the nicest guy that I think I've met. And always considerate, always asking you about your family. And but in the ring, he was hard to work with.
Oh, really?
He was hard to work with because, not because he was stiff, not because he wasn't good, but he had this character that never died. So, and I was the kind of character that less is more. I like to get that heat on a baby face and turn to the crowd and I am the Mountie and do my stuff and have that interaction with the crowd. You don't have time to do that with Rowdy because if you turn around, you're going to be punched and knocked down if you take 2 seconds just to turn around. So it was hard. That was one thing that I thought was hard. Plus, his cardio was amazing to be at that pace because to be on the offensive for like 5-6 minutes and defensive at the same time, if you take hockey players, they go in the ring for about 45 seconds and then they take a breather. So when you go in the ring for 20 minutes or 15 minutes with a guy like Rowdy Piper, I'll tell you what, the shifts are long. It's like so it was hard. So the cardio was tough, and I always felt at the time too, like when I was trying to get heat on him, it was because he didn't want to sell for me, but that's not the case. The case was that was his character. He never died. So it was like so for me it took away my side that had a lot of charisma, a lot of interaction with the crowd. So to work with him, it was a privilege. To be his friend was a privilege, but the style of work he had, I it wasn't compatible with mine.
Yeah, the chemistry there, yeah. And like you said, when you're getting that heat on him, take a break and acknowledge the crowd and get him interactive. But with his type character, it seems like you just constantly had to beat on him. So I get it. I get it.
Absolutely. Well, the Mountie went on from Piper and from Brett into feuds with all sorts of different wonderful characters in 1992, which ultimately made its way over the pond in front of 80,000 people at Wembley Stadium for SummerSlam. Talk to us about walking out in front of that crowd.
Yay! Whoa! Depends if it was, working with the Hacksaw Jim Duggan and the Nasty Boys and the Bushwhackers. I'll tell you what, there's a lot of characters in there.
Yeah,
It was it had to find, but the guys were fun. That was amazing because I always remember Vince came up to us and we were on first match.
Yeah,
and it was such an honor. Because I'll always remember what Hulk told me when I was working on his cards. Hulk came up to see us, and I remember one time he talked to me, Hulk, and he says, "You know what, Jacques?" He says, "Many times that you were on first on my cards." He said it was the most. A lot of people think the main event's the most important, but the most important is the first match, because if you start the people on the right note, then everything falls into place. And he says, "You guys did a great job." And Vince came back with the same thing. He says, "Guys, I want to make sure I start the show on the right foot. So I want these guys to go in the ring." So we went on first. And there's one good thing about going on first is that people have been waiting for it to start. They're waiting, they're anticipating, they're anxious, they're hungry, they're fixing to explode like a firework. So it's like if you give them good content, then it's going to be amazing. And so that was amazing. And Wembley for me will always be a great memory. And that's why I'm doing so many podcasts in UK now. I have so many friends now that are talking to me, and you guys, I appreciate you doing this with me. I had a great group of fans in the UK, and it was always fun for me. Even when I was going to Paris and to France, in Brussels, and speaking French, to the different countries. It was the same French. It wasn't the same French as Montreal, but it's almost like the English in Alabama say, "How y'all doing?" and the English is, "You put some ketchup on my eggs," but it's like, but it's okay. The French is different too, but to meet all these nationalities, and Europe has been so good to me. But the Wembley is always going to be a great souvenir for me.
Well, let me ask you both. So we'll come to Jacques first, and then we'll come to Bryan. You probably got very similar answers, but how did European crowds compare to crowds in North America?
They were more naive. They were more legit. They were more real. They were more nice. They're all that. They were sincere. They were genuine. It seems like the fans over in the United States have seen things over and over and over again, and to impress them, it was harder to impress them. Mm-hmm. But over there, you give what you knew and what you did best, and they appreciated you. I think it's the appreciation that was much stronger in Europe. What do you think, Bryan?
No, I agree. One year I did 10 loops into Europe and different colors, all to Italy. I'm trying to think of some of the different cities: Milan, Rome, of course, and then all of Europe. Like you said, Belgium, Germany, Austria. Austria was always fun. I loved it. And Germany, the same way. The fans were just incredible. As a matter of fact, in December, I was there for a huge Comic-Con, and just the fans that remember everything, they were so gracious and grateful, and they brought me souvenirs and things that I had never even seen before that were on the merchandising side of wrestling, that Europe got a different set of things than what the US got. I had never seen some of these items. So that part of it, I just love being there, and I'll go back. Absolutely. So
it's fun too. Like in Europe, it's fun because when you go to Europe, I remember going all these tours in Europe, and there was things that were so special. Like especially Jimmy Hart and I, we used to go and the bootleggers. Like you'd go in some shops that were not WWF shops, but they were making stuff, and that's why when you'd go over there, they'd bring you some merchandise that you'd look at the merchandise. If you knew how many times, Bryan, someone brought me to sign something, I said, can I keep this? Like, and the guy, and it happened many times where someone would have two, and he'd give me one, like, and so that was amazing. The underground in London, I'll never forget. I used to go down in the underground, and there was these boutiques under the ground, and me and Jimmy saw one time, and it was amazing. You had Hulk Hogan, you had Macho Man, you had the big stars, and they were in the middle of the poster, and on top of the poster was the Mountie and Bret Hart, and so we were the main event on the big poster, but it was about 2 feet by 3 foot, and I looked at Jimmy, said, Jacques, come and see this, and that was bootlegging, it was because a fan liked us more, I guess, but I took it home. I bought it and I took it home, and I had it in my house in the basement as a souvenir, and when I'd show my kids, said, see,
yeah.
look who's underneath me. Look who's underneath me.
I love that. Yeah. So let me ask you, Jacques, after Wembley, another evolution occurs, and that happens to be the Quebecers. You and Carl team up. How did the Quebecers come together? And then tell me, how was it teaming with our friend PCO, and what your chemistry?
It was amazing. Well, the story is amazing. The story is for I'm going to do independent wrestling for Puerto Rico for Carlos Colon, and I'm on the beach one day before the show that night. I'm working Abdullah, and during the day, so this guy comes and taps me on the shoulder, and he says to me in French, he says, "Hey, Jacques, ça va?" So then I look at him and I say, tu parles français. So, so he says, yeah, I'm from Montreal. And so we start talking, and I always had this quick connection with someone that came from my home, when you're somewhere else.
Yeah.
And it's fun to speak with someone that speaks your language and everything. So anyway, long story short, so he starts telling me a story that for 10 years he's been trying to send some tapes to WWF, and they're not returning the calls. They're not returning them. So he says, would you do me a favor? He says, tonight I'm on first match. He says, could you come and watch my match? I said, sure, I'll do it. I liked the guy right away, and then I said, sure, so I went out and I watched his match, and I was so impressed. I was so amazed by the way he took bumps on the cement floor, the way he flew, I was amazed. And right there, I had a thought that came to mind. I said to myself, me being a little older, with my experience and my good on the mic and my knowledge, my sides that are good, if I could combine his sides that are good with my sides that are good, we could be a hell of a team. So at the end of the evening, he comes to see me, and he says, excuse me, Jacques, he says, did you have a chance to see my match? I said, yeah, I saw your match. I said, listen, give me your phone number. And I said, I'm going to call Vince this week. He looked at me, he says, no. I said, yeah, I'm going to call Vince. He says, you're going to really try to get me a tape? I said, no, I'm going to try to get you in as my partner. And then he looked at me, he says, I don't believe you. I said, yeah. I said, I'm pretty good, tight with Vince now. I got a great relationship with him. I said, I'll call him, and I think we could do some good business. So he says, I don't believe you. And it stayed like that. So anyway, so about a week later, I called him after I talked to Vince. I said, Vince, and it was simple. I called Vince up, talked to him personally, and I said, Vince, I think I have something that's going to be good for the business, good for me, good for you. He says, well, what is it, Jacques? I said, I met this guy. He's a French-Canadian, this and that. And I said, I think as a team, I said, if I train him at my house, I'm going to set up a ring behind my yard in Rawdon. And I said, we're going to train for 5-6 months together. I think we could put something really good together as a team. He said, Jacques, I trust you. He says, okay. So he says, when do you want to start? And I said, well, give me till September. I said, we'll start in September. So I said, perfect. So I would set up a ring, and he'd come work out every day. And when I told him the news, he couldn't believe it. And so then finally on the 11th of September, I think, or 13th of September, we came in, and it was a Monday Night Raw. And the first night that we came in, we were against the Steiner brothers, and it was Quebec rules. And we took the titles, the World Tag Team Championship. The first night he came to WWF, he became World Tag Team Champion. And then we lasted a year where we lost him and regained him against the Men on a Mission, Marty Jannetty, and 1-2-3 Kid. And so we lost him 3 times and got him back 3 times over the span of a year. And so it was an amazing time. It was awesome. And 3 times Tag Team Champions of the world.
Is there one that ranks a little higher than any of those, or was it the first one with the Steiners, or
yeah?
What's the best? for you?
The best one was the first one. The best
first.
one is, you arrive, you're creating an impact, you're coming in, and we're two jobbers coming in to the show, and against the Steiners, and then we take the titles. It's like it's a lot of controversy. It's like
Yeah.
it hits the WWF strong, and then we had such great moves that we had practiced, like a different kind of style that with my brother Raymond. Me and Raymond had a style where there was a lot of chicken shit, like afraid and doing behind the referee's back. Me and Carl, we were killers. We came in and we had these devastating moves that would hurt the opponents. And, from Carl going up to the top and me giving him his hands like this and doing the tower on top of a guy. Carl's being 300 pounds, falling on the guy, and I had to place him right at the good spot. And then another move would have a Boston crab on a guy, and Carl would come off the second rope with a leg drop in the back of the neck. We had moves that were devastating. A simple clothesline that I'd set up a guy, I'd tag Carl, he'd hit the ropes for a clothesline the ropes, but when Carl would give him the clothesline, I would give him a leg sweep with my arm at the same time, would be a vicious whiplash, and so we had all these moves that we practiced to make sure that we didn't hurt the guys, but that they looked like we killed them. And when we came and we had a chance to, Vince gave us a lot of extras to make us look good, and we took the opportunity, and so that was the beginning of a great time, and until the when I finally had my fallout, I could say, with Vince, with the Men on a Mission, because there comes a time when you're on a run like this, and there was so much talent, and we had done a lot during like 8 months, and then finally I think Vince started to have other plans for the belts and stuff, but so he told us, he said, we're going to switch the belts, but he says what we're going to do is we're going to have non-title matches. But he says, we're going to put all the other teams over. But he says, come WrestleMania 10, in 4 months from now, you guys are going to take the titles back on Men on a Mission, and you're going to beat them in the middle of the ring with your finish. So in other words, all the merchant value, the value that we had as far as the fans look at us, and the fans... excuse me, the fans look at you sometimes, even in your character, if you're a loser or you're a winner. And so when you lose night after night after night, you lose your merchant value. You become, people don't believe in you anymore. People don't pay to see you anymore. You understand what I'm saying, Brian? You lose your value as far as marketing value. But Vince told us that we'd get it back at WrestleMania 10 when we win the titles on the biggest WrestleMania ever. Was the 10, the biggest one. And then so we were going around for 4 months doing jobs for everybody. I mean, everybody, and even my hometown and everywhere. And it was hard, but we knew, and you know how hard it is morally to travel 25 days a month and to get beat, and even in your hometown. And so anyway, so when came WrestleMania 10, 1 hour before the match, Pat came to see us in the dressing room, and he told us, Jacques, he says, Vince was thinking about this, and maybe it wouldn't be a good situation if we beat the moms tonight and this and that. So after we did our work for like 4 months, he didn't give us the credibility that we supposed. I was so upset. I told Pat, I said, I want to go see Vince right now in the dressing room. And so I went to him to see him, and I told him to open his books. And I said, you tell me the dates that I'm booked at. So I was booked for 2 more months, finishing in Tel Aviv and Israel. And then I gave my notice. I said, that's it. I'm out of here. And that was it. So I had a falling out with Vince, and it's been 35 years. And so, but I'm a man of my word.
I was on that Tel Aviv tour.
I'm a man of my word, Brian. If you tell me something, you better deliver, because I'm going to deliver. Whatever you ask me, I'm a yes man. But if you tell me something, you can't play me like that for 4 months, and then it's not fair.
No, not at all.
No.
Hey, listen, guys, I got music behind me. There's a band starting here, because I'm in Florida, so I hope you can still hear me, man. There's a band right there.
As long as they rock, we're not the Mounties, then we're fine, right? Well, I wanted to touch base on this because it's something that has come into the spotlight when it comes to professional wrestling media as of late, because the WWE have started up their WWE Vault page on YouTube. And one of the big recent additions has been your final match in the WWF, and it was you against Carl in Montreal. So that is
It was
now
amazing.
available. Go out of your way and check it out, because that is an unbelievable spectacle. So I just want to touch base on that. That was huge in Montreal. Bryan was also a part of that show. He rocked it with Quang in the opener, and he set that crowd on fire like we were just talking about. But what an absolutely incredible match. Let's just talk a little bit about your final match with Carl in Montreal.
It was it was amazing. It was amazing because, you know, I think that in wrestling, you know, people are getting smarter and smarter over the years, but once in a while you get this feud that people question themselves: is this real or is this a work? And those are the feuds that draw a lot of money. And the way Carl's, excuse my language, but screwed me in the match against the Head Shrinkers. You know, he turned on me after we lost the belts for the final time with the Head Shrinkers. He turned on me. And the way he turned on me, you know, I went to do, for months before the show, I went to tell him that I'm having my last match with WWF, but I want my match against Carl Ouellet because the way he jumped me at the end of the match, I want to settle the score. And I said, after everything I've done for him, he manages to do something like that to me. I said, I want to settle the score, me and him, man to man. And so I went to on TV, radio, and newspapers, and I'm very, very lucky that I was very popular with the media in Quebec. I've always been very liked. I've always done charities all my life, baseball games, hockey games. I've always been everywhere. And anytime anybody needed me, I was always there for a good cause. So they all got behind me, and they started giving me front pages of newspapers and front pages of TVs, like, you know, and bringing this match. Jacques, you know, I know we understand it's a show and everything. I said, no. Yes, it's a show. And yes, I'm going to go in there. But this guy here, he deserves to be taught a lesson. And I'm going to teach him a lesson. And, you know, so people were questioning, is this real? And there was 20,000 people that night. And if you go watch that match on YouTube, you're going to see me probably at one of my matches that I am the most over that I've ever been in Montreal. Because every punch, everything I did, there's 20,000 people behind me. Everything I did. And the extraordinary match that Carl and I delivered is we put a lot of work in there. We went in my backyard again, and we put the ring up, and we took it at Hart. And so it was a time that I saw the match not long ago, and when it came out, actually just before they came to Montreal for a live show, they put it out 2 days before. You know, they always use the Rougeau brothers when they need it, but that's okay. All that to say that they should consider putting us in the Hall of Fame. But anyway, that makes, to me, I got to tell you, it makes no sense. I don't know if you guys plan on talking about it, but I'm going to talk about it, because if you go on my Facebook, it's a public Facebook. So if you go, you'll see my picture of me and my girlfriend. Raymond and I, we did an interview not long ago, and Raymond opened up for the first time. If you see how he feels, his 17 years as a commentator, being the French voice, you know, for Europe and for Quebec, and everything we did in the ring, everything the 4 generations of the Rougeaus done for wrestling, and put the events. If you go see the match, like you're talking about, me and Carl, what we've done for wrestling, the jailhouse match, me being the only Canadian to ever beat Hulk Hogan, you know, in Canada. I'm the only one who pinned Hulk Hogan, and no one in Canada has ever done that, the Canadian. And very few have done it in his career. So you know, I've accomplished so many things that we're a little bitter. And that's why I was so happy that last week, Ben Veal, I don't know if you know Ben Veal, he introduced us in the Hall of Fame. And it was like, and we were so happy, Raymond and I, because, you know, it was like, if that's where Raymond talked, he opened up a little bit. If you go listen to that podcast, you'll see Raymond opens up a bit on how he feels. And it's like, but what was great about that was it's coming from the fans in Europe. It's coming from the good people I was telling you before in Europe, that the people that really love for the love of wrestling, the people that for the really good reasons, and why we should. I was so proud to be inducted. It's like a big weight came off my shoulders. It was like, well, finally someone appreciates us for our true value.
All of Europe, man. It's great.
Well, I'm sat here with 2 Wrestling Life Hall of Famers, class of 2026. Well done to both of you. We applaud you, and thank you so much for everything that you have given. We were definitely going to come to that as we progress through the show, but seeing as we are up to that particular point right now, I just want to send out my massive congratulations to the fabulous Rougeau brothers and Brian Clark, smashing it. And our good friend over your shoulder, Mr. Clark, Brian Adams as well, Chronic going in as a team. We love that. We love that.
Thank you.
Celebrating all
Thank
of you.
you.
Well, let's carry on. Let's carry on because
Yes.
you just highlighted it. So, Brian, touch on
Yeah,
it.
he just mentioned it, and I want to talk about it. You were the only guy to pin Hogan in Montreal.
Yeah.
Right?
In Canada.
In Canada. So what is the story behind that? I know it was a massive moment for you in your career with Montreal loves you. And then for you to go over Hogan in your hometown. Tell us about it.
Oh, I'm going to tell you something, but you probably know this. But anyway,
Okay.
it was so surprising how it came across. Me being the local superstar and Hulk being Hulk, and me and organizing that event with WCW and asking Hulk to do that with Eric Bischoff to come to Montreal with my lawyer Cookie Lazarus, who, because of the WWF had the rights on the building, they had the exclusivity. I told Eric Bischoff, I said, listen, I said, I could change that. He says, no, you can't change WWF having the exclusivity. I said, yes, I can, because there's something that's called les droits de la charte de la liberté du Québec, means the rights of the charts of the liberty of Quebec. And there's not an American company that could stop a Quebec company from renting a building. It's politics. So I told that to Eric Bischoff. His eyes came this big. And then I said, hey, I could do that for you guys with my lawyer, but I said, there's one condition. I want to work with Hulk. It's always been my dream to work with Hulk. But where I messed up so bad is I thought, because Hulk was NWO, he was at the prime of his career. At the time, he was really high with NWO. It was big. It was huge. He was a heel. And I was babyface at home. So I told Hulk, I said, listen, I said, I'll skip a part. I'll skip a part. I'll come back to, but I want to go into the entrance, because I told Hulk, I said, listen, Hulk, I said, I'm going to go in first just to give you the deserving, the icon that you are, and so when I came out with the Quebec and the Canadian flag, 99% of the people booed me.
Wow.
I'm in my hometown. I did not call the shot. I've been in the business so long, and I did not call the shot, and I should have. And so when Hulk came out, 99% of the people were giving the Hulk and the NWO the signs and everything, and that messed up my scenario, because and so when I came out, I did what I had to do. He was cheating during the match. I was staying babyface, working hard, selling good for him, and getting the sympathy of the people slowly and slowly and slowly. And then when I was in the dressing room, it was so funny, because when all the boys were there, to get back to before when it happened, I know that I'm going with Hulk in the ring to put him over. I know that. There's no question about it. So, but I just want to look good in the match, at least to look half decent,
Yeah.
So we get in the dressing room, and then Hulk tells me in front of most of all the boys, you may have been there, Brian, and he says, okay, boss, what are we doing tonight? And I looked, and I started laughing so hard, and most of the guys that were there, they started laughing so hard, like, what a joke, what a rib, and then Hulk was staying serious, and he says, I'm serious, guys. He says, Jacques, it's your show tonight. What are we doing? He says, so I stopped, and I was thinking, what are we doing? And I'm just waiting for him to say what he wants. And then he says to me, how are you going to beat me? And when he said that, boys started laughing again. And I laughed so hard, I think I sniffled on myself, and I laughed so hard. Like, that's really funny. That's the funniest thing I've ever heard. And he stayed serious. And then he says, I'm serious. He says, I'm putting you over tonight. How are we doing it? And the more he kept saying it, the more the boys stopped laughing, and I stopped laughing, and I'm going I'm going into shock. Like, is he ribbing me or what? And what a good rib, what a good joke. And then finally he says, I'm serious, brother. What are we doing? He says, you're going over tonight. What are we doing? I says, so funny, just be funny. And I said, well, in that case, go ahead and beat me up the whole match, and I'll just small package you at the end, just a lucky move. He says, let's do that. So it stayed like that. So we got onto the ring, and he started calling some spots, and he had me cross body blocking. He had me coming off the second rope with some fists off the second rope. I battled with him the whole match, almost like a Piper match, back and forth. And then at the end, he put me over. But it was, when I tell you this, Brian, and you'll know, because you weren't there at the end when I came out, right, Brian? You weren't in the dressing room when I came out, because nobody was. When I came out in the dressing room at the end, when I came out of the shower, like, you know, after everybody was gone. And it was like, and then so me and Hulk were the last ones in the dressing room. And Hulk came up to me, and Hulk, I got to tell you, he was a little snug that night. I think he regretted doing the job after coming out so popular at 99% hero when he came out. I think he had regrets. I'm not sure. But anyway, he was a little snug. But I got to tell you, during the day, well, I got to go back a month earlier. A month earlier, we're doing a pre-tape in Orlando. And I'm asking Hulk, I said, Hulk, I'm going to do an interview for Montreal against you. I said, would you mind stepping in and just come in and just give me a slap on the, you know, on the back of the head, like, you know, and intimidate me with Diesel and with Razor Ramon, and you just, the click is coming in, then you just intimidate me. He says, sure. So we do the promo a month before the show. He comes in and he hits me with a hit, but he hits me in the back here of the ear, and it was so stiff. Like, and I think he wanted to look good. He didn't want to hurt me, but I was all dizzy when he hit me. I was on the interview. Holy shit. So a month later, when he comes to Montreal, I have a whole setup with the media. I said, listen, guys, I got 2 limousines coming at the airport to pick him up. I said, I'm going to be in the back one hiding in it. And I said, I'll have Hulk's limousine in the front. I said, if you guys want to be there with that CF12 News, TVA News, all the news, the big medias, they're all there. The Journal de Montréal. I said, if you want to come, and I said, I have a surprise for Hulk when he gets out of the airport. And when he got out of the airport, he feels like he comes out, hey, Rougeau, tonight is the night. And he's talking to the cameras and this and that. And then when he's doing that, I sneak out of the limousine behind him and I tap on his shoulder like this. And he turns around and I, pow. But I slapped him. I wanted to slap him in the neck, but I slapped him in the face. And I ran into the limousine and I took off. It looked so good. And Carl was actually in the limousine with me. Carl Willett, he was with me in the limousine, and we took off. And about 2 minutes later, the driver of the limousine called my driver of the limousine, and he said, so the driver gave me the phone. He says he wants to talk to you. So he says to me, he says, I said, Hulk, I said, thank you so much. You broke my fucking tooth. Like, I broke his tooth. I literally broke his tooth. And I swear to God, anybody who knows the story. And I'm going like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, Hulk. And then he hung up. He never spoke to me again until we got in the dressing room. Until when we got in the dressing room, that's when we go back to where he says, what are we doing tonight? You know, and
wow.
And I'll tell you something amazing about this while we're at it. The show's over with. He comes back in the dressing room. Like I said, he was a little snug with me during that. I think he gave me a couple of receipts for the tooth. But anyway, when I so he comes up in the mirror in the dressing room and he asks me, he says, everything okay, brother? I looked at him and said, yes, sir. I had a hard time moving my mouth. I said, yes, sir. Everything's fine. I was so happy, so much adrenaline. And so he takes off and he's gone. So I leave. So I'm going to leave the building about 30 minutes later. I'm coming out of the underground where the hockey players in the Montreal Forum Park at, Molson Center. So I'm going like the hockey. So I'm coming up the ramp. The big door opens. There's about thousands of people. I don't know how much. They're all in front of the door with Hogan signs, screaming, Hogan, Hogan, Hogan. The haters and the fans of Hogan's are waiting for me on the way out in the back. So when I come out, I got my wife with me in the car. So the door opens. I'm starting to come to move with the car, but the people are not moving. So I have to push them with my car. People are staying there and they're screaming Hogan, banging on my car and screaming Hogan. And the worst part was when I did about 20 feet, the door of the building closed behind me. And I felt like I was claustrophobic. And it came out of nowhere. I swear to God, I don't know where it came from. My instinct. I looked around, I looked at my wife and I says, I'm getting out, lock the door. And I pushed on my door. And she didn't have time to say nothing. She just screamed and I shut the door behind me. And the people right in front of my face, they all wanted to kill me. They all hated me. And I went like this, and out of nowhere, I went real fast with my left hand. And I grabbed a piece of paper. And then I grabbed the pen. And then I signed my name. And then they started screaming, Hogan, Hogan. And then I grabbed another one. Signed another paper. 3 minutes later, I swear to God, you had to witness it to believe it. People are screaming, Rougeau, 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 Rougeau. But I was scared so much when I got out of the car, but I confronted my fear. Like, I thought it was the only way I could stop this from turning really bad is to confront them. to show
Wow.
them that, you know, I'm stand up to my grounds here.
Yeah.
That was the most amazing moment of the whole thing.
That is unbelievable. Wow.
What a
Taking
story.
that risk. Yeah. Wow.
That is a lot, isn't it? I mean, you look at
Yeah.
that from that basis. Yeah, you have rolled that dice, brother, because it could have
Yeah.
gone either way.
Exactly. It
Yeah.
could have came about. It could have came out really worse.
It could.
That's what we are, eh? The boys, you know, we're unpredictable and we think fast. We're I don't know where that came from, but I'll never forget that story as long as I live.
It always happens, on the road, things that stay with you even all these years later. You remember stories. If you're in Europe or in the US, things happen on the road. It's so funny that you remember stories that come back to you. I'll tell my wife stories that for sure I've told her, and then once in a while I come up with a new one. She's like, I've never heard that before. Because you're on the road that much that you don't always have time to talk about your experiences of what's going on. So yeah, I understand that. So Tomcat, are we going into conventions right now?
I definitely think this is the perfect spot,
Yeah.
seeing as Jacques was just talking about signing autographs, that it
Yeah.
is the perfect link to go into the convention scene. Because we welcomed you last year for the love of wrestling in Manchester, and you had the fans pumping, so much so we're going to show a picture here on the show of a smorgasbord of guests that turned up dressed up like the Mountie to greet you. How amazing was that? How important is the convention scene to professional wrestlers?
For us, it's like I always say, it's the greatest moment that we live now, like 30 years later, because the greatest thing about conventions is you go for 4 hours to meet your fans, and in a span of 4 hours, they bring you your 50 years of career, and the people that come to see you is people that like you and worship you.
Yeah.
So they bring the best of you. So they bring this here, this T-shirt, this poster, this souvenir, this memory, and you feel like you've accomplished something. When you come out of a Comic Con, it takes me 2 days to come down from a Comic Con because I'm still a mark. Because when I come out of there, I feel so great. My esteem of myself is so big. It's like, wow, I can't believe I touched these people like that, And you know what I love the most about Comic Cons? What I love the most. I'm one of those guys that come in costume. I dress up with my costume. I got my boots, I got my pants, my glasses, my hat, and since I got my hat, you can't see I got no hair, so I look alike. So the people are in other lines of people of different talent, and they see me from far away. Oh, look, the Mounties over there. And what I have so much fun is as soon as they get close to me, I do this thing with the fans all the time. That's the first one that comes in the Comic Con early in the morning. He's the one that shows everybody. But I take somebody beside me, and then I ask him, the guy with a hat, and he comes in, and then I said, I tell him, I said, you want a funny picture or you want a straight picture? And the guy looks at me and said, well, what do you mean? I said, let's take a funny picture. I said, take off your hat. Take off your hat. He put his hat on the table. So then I said, okay, so I'm going to grab you by the hair. And I said, I want you to put your two hands up like this, and I want you to look at my stick like, and I said, and then I tell the guy, no, put a scary face on. I said, good. And then I go with mine, and I go like, and I put my cattle prod right in front of him, and then we take the picture. Then once we took the picture, I always tell the guy, show me the picture. So he shows me the picture. I said, no, bring it closer. So I said, let's look at our facial expressions. And they always come out really good. And so what I do is I bring the fans back in the role of being with me in the ring, or into sharing the time. And that for me is so precious, that it's so fun, so much fun.
We absolutely loved having you over in Manchester. We'd love to see you again real soon. Joining us actually at this year's show is an individual that introduced herself to you only last week, that being the daughter of the Dynamite Kid, Bronwyne Billington. Talk to us about this full circle moment of reconnection with the family and what it means to you.
Well, I'm gonna speak honest with you guys. One thing that I do in the Comic Cons, I shouldn't be saying this, but I always like to look at the pretty ladies. And look, guys, I'm a Frenchman. That's the French part of me I can't take away. I just so I'm spotting her over there. She's at 2 tables away, and I'm just looking at her like this. So finally we get eye contact like this, and then she looks at me like she goes like, look here, Tom. So she looks at me and she goes like this to me. So I go like this, hey, come on, take a picture, you know? So she comes over to take a picture. So we take the picture. And I'm treating her like a normal fan, just taking her. And next thing you know is I said, oh, thank you very much. I turned my back to her. And then she taps me on the shoulder. She says, do you know who I am? I said, oh, yeah, that's my line. You know, like, I said, that's great. You know, I appreciate her imitating me, like, you know. And then she's saying, no, I'm the daughter of the British Bulldog, Dynamite Kid. When she did that to me, I froze. I can't explain my emotions yet. I felt empathetic. I felt sorry. I felt sorry. I felt horrible, and I was hiding my face. And then finally, after about maybe 20 seconds, I put my hands up. She kept telling me, "It's okay, it's okay. I forgive you, Jacques. You know, I forgive you." And I'm saying to myself, you know, then again, when she told me that, I was so caught up in what she just said, because what do you forgive me for? Like saving my life, like, you know, but I'm not telling her that, like, you know, I did what I had to do. You don't have to forgive me. It's like, you know, but I didn't say that to her. I was empathetic towards her. I felt the pain that we had, that there was something going on. I mean, I'm going to have to analyze it. You know, I'm not a psychiatrist, but there was something going on there that I never felt before in my life. And after about talking with her for about 20, 25 minutes, it was so funny. The reaction when I took the plane home that night, and different fans that wrote to me said, Jacques, I saw you talking to her and then sending messages. What a moment that was for us to see that. Everybody, I had no idea people were looking at us, you know, because I was caught up in this moment with her. And after 20 minutes, she finally told me, she says, Jacques, she said, I'd like to have you on my podcast. And then I looked at her and I said, I took about a second and I said, okay, one condition. I tell the truth. I tell you what happened. If you're willing to hear what happened, I'll go on your podcast. She said, okay, that's good with me. I said, fine, let's do it. So next week I'm going to do it. I'm going to go on her podcast next week. But it's going to be very, very, I'm going to be choosing my words. But I'm going to be telling the truth of how I was attacked when I was playing cards, of how I was bullied, how I lost all my self-esteem, how I was bullied night after night after being beat up and left in a pile of blood in the dressing room, and me not being a fighter, me being an entertainer. I'm not a tough guy. My brother Raymond and my dad are tough guys. I'm an entertainer in the family, you know. So it's like, for me, it was in a position where, well, I was like I compare myself a lot in my mind to McFly in Back to the Future. I was a guy who I didn't want to fight. I never wanted to fight, you know. So I wasn't that kind of guy. But I was put in a position where, if I don't do something, the Rougeau name is going down the drain. My self-esteem for the rest of my life, of how I feel about myself, is going down the drain. So I did what I had to do. But it was not a good moment. Some good came out of it, because for 25 years I helped kids in schools to fight bullying. I did conferences for 25 years. So something good came out of it, and it made a man out of me, you know, whether I like it or not. You know, it was but I'm still not a fighter. I still don't like violence. I don't like confrontations. I didn't have that. I think that went down my mother's leg. But anyway, I don't I don't have that in me, you know. It's so for me to have a confrontation with someone has always been an effort, like, you know, a hard thing to do. I'd rather avoid fights than having them. So it was a big ordeal in my life. But the meeting her, and to have this confrontation, the surprise, and the way I hid behind my hands, and the way I melted in my boots, the way I can't explain to you. I don't know what I was thinking. It was horrible, and it was great at the same time, I guess.
Well, we are looking forward to hearing the full story on Dirt with the Doll, which is going to be coming up real soon as Jacques sits down with Bronwyne Billington. Really looking forward to it, mate. And
is that what it's called? Is that what it's called? Dirt with the Doll?
There you go. You know it. She's the Dynamite doll. Oh, it's all fun. Okay. It's all fun. It puts a smile on my face every time I see it. But yeah, it's so good to see that full circle, that reconnection, and the positivity that we like to promote here on the Meltdown, that there is a positive end to that story.
I want to tell you about something too. I'm organizing a big show in Canada on May 30th. It's called Legends. It's called Legends Mania, and it's a Comic-Con during the day, and there's a show that night. And I'm part owner now of this company. We're 5 owners. I joined this company because I always had the passion of wrestling. I think I'm going to die in the wrestling. But anyway, So while we're organizing this last year, I'm up to about 270, 268. I'm heavy. I'm eating chocolate and chips, and I'm just not taking care of myself anymore. And I don't like it because I've been in shape all my life. And I was looking for a reason to train, because at my age, at 65, you need to have an incentive. You need to have a reason to go to the gym. It's not. I remember when I was young, I used to run to the gym. Now I'm at my age, I run out of the gym. You know, it's like times have changed, and so I needed some incentive. And so I told the owners of the company, I said, "Hey, I'm going to do the Royal Rumble. There's a Royal Rumble. I'm going to get in that match. I'm going to do a bushwhacker appearance. Yay. And I'm just going to have some fun." And then so that was it. But about 3 months ago, they announced me, my four partners, that Harry Smith found out that I was in that battle royal, that he wants to be in that battle royal and he doesn't want to be paid. He wants to go to this show and he doesn't want to be paid. So I'm acknowledging his facts, and I'm saying, well, it's okay, because the last time I saw Harry, I worked with his dad. That was the Mountie, and that was 2 years after the incident, and we worked for the Intercontinental title. We had great matches, and we were friends. We had become friends. And I even took a picture with Harry when he was like 5, 6 years old. I have him in my arms. So I said, that's fine. So then I see a promo that he did on one of the podcasts with Jimmy Cordora, who used to be a referee, and Donnie De Silva. He goes on a podcast and he says something. Hey, Quebec fans, I'm really looking forward to come to Legends Mania on the May 30th next year, but I'm mostly really anxious to get in the ring with Jacques Rougeau. And then he's serious. So I'm going like this, like, wow, this is a good way to sell tickets. You know, this is funny. You know, this is good. So after that, I called. So I tried to reach him, to write him, and I said, "Hey, I don't want to start this rivalry anymore again. You know, and he didn't answer me. So then I talked to Diana, his mother, and I talked to Diana. I said, you know, Harry, he did this. I said, I know he wants to help sell tickets and stuff, but I said, I hope he understands that I'm 65 years old. And I know that he's a monster, you know, that he could probably tie me up like a pretzel and have fun with me. I said, but I don't want him to cripple me, like, you know. And I was a little concerned. And Diana said, no, don't worry, I'll talk to him. And she never got back to me again. And then just last week, I saw another thing where he posted something about explaining why he was upset at me, because he says, it's true. I heard Jacques say on an interview that we were friends and this and that. He took a picture with me. But I said, the last 30 years, Jacques has been going around telling everybody on podcasts and everybody in stories that the British Bulldogs were this and were that and were this. Why didn't he say Tom Billington? Why did he have to bring my dad in this? Like, you know, he says my dad liked him. He said he was friends with my dad. Why did he dirty the image? Like, you know, the legacy. Why he keeps dirtying this? Why doesn't he just say Tom Billington instead of the British Bulldogs? He says, I'm a British Bulldog. He said he's so he's making it sound like he's a little upset, which I'm sure he's not. But he's making it sound like he's a little upset. But to be honest with you, I don't need that stress. I don't need that stress. I want to go in and have some fun, you know? And
the word that you just used there, monster. Harry is a monster.
I know. You don't have to.
We had him on our show a few months ago, and he was in Tokyo. So it was like a 4 a.m. interview for me and Tom, you know. And his training, he is in beast mode, no doubt about it. So hopefully everything is copacetic between you two. I don't know. I'm just saying that the guy his training is unbelievable.
Yeah, don't piss him off. Take him some Turkish tea, Jacques. He loves Turkish tea.
Turkish tea.
Well, let's put it this way, guys. You should have him on your podcast again and tell him I'm his friend. but anyway,
we can do that.
No, I'm sure he's a professional. I'm sure he'll stay. But you know, the problem is, I'll tell you what the problem is. To be honest with you, Brian, you're going to understand this more than anybody. In our business, we have a lot of shit disturbers. We have a lot of the boys. You know, and I was told, he said on the interview with Donnie De Silva and Jimmy Cordero, he says, I have so many people coming in, he says, every time, like every year, if somebody said, hey, Jacques just blasted your dad again. Jacques just blasted your dad again. And so the boys, they like to stir up some things, like, you know, it seems like it's entertainment for them. But I got to tell you, it's not for me. It's not fun. I've never, Brian, I've never backed down from anything. I never looked for trouble. I'm always afraid of trouble, but I never backed down. I never ran. I gave my word 6 months ago I was going to be in that Royal Rumble. I even have some friends now writing me in private saying, Jacques, why don't you break a bone, like a week before or something, like, just pull out of the match there, And I'm going like, hell no, like, I'm not going to do that. I have self-esteem. I have a business. This is a professional business. We're in the entertainment business. But I'll have to say that it's so funny that last week when I met Dynamite's daughter, and the last thing she told me, it's so funny. She told me, she said, I'd like to come to that show.
Should be doing a running on you.
I said to myself, Diana's going to be there. Georgia's going to be there. She's going to be there. Harry's going to be there. Holy mackerel. I said, I better get some of my family to come too.
I was looking back at the list for some of the people that are going to be there that you mentioned on the 30th of May, which will be, we got Jake the Snake Roberts, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Lex Luger, Jerry the King Lawler, Sarah Page, which is the girl that dresses up as China. So, I mean, you got a full
awesome.
list of a lot of...
Coco Beware, Greg the Hammer Valentine.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we got a lot of the Rhino. I don't know if you know a guy called.
Oh yeah,
Rhino.
yes, of course, great guy.
He's coming too. There's a Sean Mooney.
Mooney's going to be right here. He's in Tucson. He's our local.
I know.
News anchor.
He told me he met you. He told me he met you at a hockey game or something, or he met you.
Man.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's awesome. He says so. It's going to be a great show in the afternoon. It's going to be memory lane. It's going to be everybody. Me and Raymond's going to be there. The fabulous Rougeau brothers too. So it's like it's awesome. for people who watched wrestling in the 80s. They come in the afternoon. They come and meet all their celebrities that when they used to watch them on TV, and then they come and watch the show that night. And the show is going to be so good, Brian. I mean, the matches are incredibly. It's the best talent from Canada that's coming to that show. But you know what? I think when I think of this show, I think of me, my age, as I'm growing older. As I grow older, I get more mature and I'm a little wiser, hopefully. And I think that sometimes I feel like the days are long, but the years go by just like that. And the things that make me happy today is not what I'm going to do tomorrow. Is not what I plan tomorrow. Is memories. Is things that I did that I had fun in the past. I look back at the past sometimes, and that's when I have the most fun. And I think of the people that come to share that day, and they go back and they relive the time they were sitting in the living room with their dad watching TV. It was a great moment in their life, and then they see these guys, and it brings back memories and souvenirs. And that's what that day is. So hopefully if you're in the Northeast or you're anywhere in the Northeast in the United States or in Canada, come to the show on May 30th in Gatineau, Quebec. You can go on my website, by the way, JacquesRougeau.com. You can get the tickets there for the afternoon, for the VIPs, for whatever. But I think it's going to be an amazing event. We have, as of now, we got 1,500 tickets sold, and it's in 3 months from now. And it holds 5,000 the venue. So we're expecting like between 4,000 and 5,000 people for that show. So it's going to be amazing.
That is going to be.
Here on the Meltdown, we will definitely put all of your information, where to get tickets, whatever we can do to help promote it. We'll happily do that.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. It is going to be a spectacle. It's like he had our script as well, Brian. He knew exactly where to go. We love it. We love it.
He's a pro, man. He's a pro.
Well, I've got to just say, ladies and gentlemen, what a journey from growing up in a legendary Montreal wrestling family to the fabulous Rougeau brothers, to the Mountie, to the tag team champion, to Wembley Stadium and pinning Hulk Hogan, and now continuing to give back to wrestling fans across Quebec and beyond. If you want to see Jacques Rougeau live, meet him, hear more stories, and be a part of wrestling history, make sure you join us Saturday, May the 30th at GPW Legends Mania and Civil War 6 in Gatineau, Quebec, Canada. Get your tickets now at gpwlegendsmania.ca or jacquesrougeau.com.
I have a message for I got one last message I got for Harry Smith.
Whoa! Hey, the sun's out, the gun's out, baby.
Yeah, I'm training hard, man. I'm doing the high level of 30 minutes of cardio every day. I'm getting prepared to run, not to fight, but to run.
Love it, man. Hey, listen, everybody, Meltdown Universe, check this out. Give it up one more time for the Wrestling Live Hall of Famer himself, Montreal's own Jacques Rougeau, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely.
It just makes me want to scream from the rooftops, I am the Tomcat. Yes, I'm still there. And what a conversation we have just had with the legendary Jacques Rougeau. Thank you so much, brother, for joining us for our Meltdown Monday. Brian, what a treat.
Man, it was everything I expected and a lot more. And I mean that in the most positive way. Jacques is a legend in this business, three-time tag team champion, IC champion. He's done it all, man. And what a great personality. What a great guy. Always got along with Jacques and loved traveling with him back in the day. And again, just radiating that positivity. And that's what we're all about here. We don't get into the games. We take the high road, brother. That's just what we do. And again, that's why the 18,000 plus are growing each and every day right here on the Meltdown.
And you do realize if you are watching our show and aren't yet a subscriber, all you need to do is click that subscribe button, ring that notification bell, and another notch comes on our tally. And as we started this show, I promised you once we hit 20,000, I would do Brian's Ice Plunge Challenge. My towel has been sat there for a couple of months now, peeps. So come on, get those fingers a clicking, click that subscribe button and get yourselves ready. You guys also need to follow us on our social media channels. You can hit that legend right there up at Real Brian Clark on YouTube. You can hit him up at Brian Clark 3X Champ on Instagram. You can always get in touch with me at Tom Finkill. But the one that you need for all your Meltdown needs is our official Instagram handle at the Meltdown Official. That's where you guys need to go. Send us all your messages. We've had some wonderful messages this week. Keep them flowing. We've got big names coming at you. And we've also got some different shows too. We're going to review the current products. Elimination Chamber is coming up, peeps. We need to find out who else is going to be pointing at that WrestleMania symbol. We've got some watch-alongs because there's been some very interesting comments and content that's been put up on the WWE Vault and WCW channels as of late. So that's always interesting. It's like we've got multiple irons in this fire, big man. It's all going
Wait a minute. That's what we got. We got stuff everywhere. On top of this, before we close out here, big shout out, ladies and gentlemen, Wrestling Life. Go ahead and take a look there. Wrestling Life, our good buddy, Ben Veal. Ben, man, you're doing such a great job. Well over the 102K mark, which is unbelievable. Congratulations, my friend. The Tomcat and the Bomber love you, and keep doing what you're doing, man. You've got some phenomenal people on your show, and we just happen to have one of your good friends and one of your newest Hall of Famers, Jacques Rougeau, the one half of the Rougeau brothers. And again, Ben, just congrats, man. Just a big shout out from the Meltdown. And thank you for doing what you are doing.
Oh, absolute superstar. Well, I'm about to run away, jump in the shower and start singing All American Boys. It's the only part that I forgot Jacques to do. But it's it's going to live with me in infamy. We're going to get ready to disappear out of here. Join us next week. You know where it is. It's the same time, same channel. Be there or be square, because shoes ain't cheap and booking ain't easy. I'll see you next week. A boom.
We are rolling out. Thank you, Tomcat. As usual, right back here next Monday, breaking necks and cashing checks. We will see you then. Have a great week, everybody.
Oh, boom.